What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Football Goons podcast. We're glad that you've joined us again this week as we begin our 2018 season preview series. Fear not if you're mostly here for the fantasy takes, because we're going to be weaving in plenty of fantasy football talk into our previews. Listen, you can go probably 100 other places and just hear, this is who's going to win this division. This is the player who's going to make a big step up or who they really need to rely on. We're kind of going at this from a different angle with all due respect to all those different kind of previews. We want to weave in a lot more fantasy football talk. We're going to start, as always, with the AFC and take a division by division look without giving too many in-depth predictions. As I mentioned just a minute ago, we'll discuss how we see the divisions playing out, but we're not going to really get into our playoff predictions and wild cards and things like that at this point in the series. We'll get to that a little bit further down the line. So, guys, look, fantasy season is officially here. I mean, they're doing crazy marathons on TV. National mock draft day and stuff was just the other day. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you? And have you drafted any leagues yet?
Yeah, I've not drafted officially. You guys know I'm such a dork. I'm now 42 mocks in on Yahoo, which does not count my sleeper app mocks. So yeah, I've mocked once or twice. I was about an 8 to a 9 on excited for football season until this afternoon. And it kind of, as a group, we know this. My dad is an Eagles fan, and my dad has significant trouble pronouncing virtually every player's name. Going back to when the Eagles signed Javon Creasy, that's kind of our big one. So that kind of signifies the real kickoff for football for me. And I went over to my dad's house today, and we talked a little bit about the preseason. And my dad is very pumped about the newly signed Eagles quarterback, Huckabee. So Christian Hackenberg already had a great nickname in the Goons. He was the Hawk. I think he now has to be Huckabee. But after hearing my dad's first mispronunciation of the year, I'm like a 13, South. I'm so pumped for football season. It feels real now. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely a 10 just because of this past weekend, all the hot takes coming in on Twitter, on social media about, a guy has one carry and we're ready to crown him the greatest thing in the history of life. Right. A guy has, a really good showing against like a third or fourth string defense, and we're ready to crown them the savior. So all the hot takes have me in the mood. So
I know what you're getting at. Watch your mouth. I know that was a shot at Sam.
I'm going right for it.
I know it.
Right out of the gates. Get him mad right out of the gates. I like it.
I'm at a 10.
10.
I've been at a 10 for like 3 weeks now, honestly, and so I'm probably at like a 12 right now. Like I can't wait for preseason football this weekend to see what else we're going to learn about these guys. I can't wait for my next 3 fantasy drafts coming up in the next 10 to 12 days. It's just such an exciting time. This literally the culmination of 7 months.
Yeah, I'm probably a little slower to excite than the three of you. Might be well noted, but I'm probably a solid 9 right now because I got room to grow still. I want to see this. I want to see the starters play a little more, but I'm excited though.
I had so many comments.
You don't get to 10 until you have your first official roster.
That's probably true, or at least I'm at the draft.
Right.
I don't need because the draft's my favorite part. So
yeah.
All right. Well, listen, let's get into the conversation here. We're going to go division.
Before we get into it, I got to throw you some props there, host with the most.
I'll always take props.
This is basically
all right. Let's move along.
This is basically our third year doing this, and I just want to say the way you put the agenda together, so fantasy focused. This is going to be an actually bearable AFC preview podcast.
Nice.
So thank you. You made AFC football somehow worth talking about. So I'm proud of you.
I'm
nice
fighting
job.
Everybody already.
I still got my subtle shots in because in the email I sent out, I had some Browns fans with bags over their heads to describe my feelings about it. But let's get into it here. AFC East. And listen, this is how they finished in 2017. You had the Patriots at 13-3, the Bills at 9-7, Dolphins 6-10, Jets 5-11. So the obvious first question here, give me your projected order of finish in the AFC East. I'll go first to our resident AFC East fan, Rocco.
I would love to sit here and tell you that I'm going to scream from the mountaintops that this is finally the year, but it's not. I'm going to go. The gap is going to close, but it's not going to be the year. I'm going to go actually Pats, the resurgent New York Jets, and then I think dwelling at the bottom of this division are the Bills and the Dolphins in that order.
Yeah, I'll chime in because I have that exact order, and I felt a little bit weird about it because when I went through and we actually, I believe we all went through and actually played it out on a simulator basically. I felt like this was again a top heavy division, but the Jets kind of closed the gap a little bit and became a lot more competitive. So not necessarily three barn burner teams behind the Patriots, but I do believe the Patriots window is closing.
I sure hope so. But I actually don't have the same order. I have Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, Bills. I don't see how anybody's worse than the Bills. Like, not just in this division at all. They're bad, man. They're so bad.
I think they're equally as bad. I think that the Bills have a couple more weapons than the Dolphins do. Like, the Dolphins have no offensive weapons, really. I mean, I like Kenyon Drake, but if I have to compare him to LaShawn McCoy at this point, I'm still going to give the edge to McCoy. I don't like any of their receivers. I just.
What receivers do you like from the Bills? I hope Corey Coleman's okay there, but
I really think it's just equally ugly.
Yeah, I mean, certainly neither one's worth arguing for.
Okay, so I know that this isn't fantasy relevant, but which defense would you trust more to actually keep them competitive in a game?
None, neither one.
I mean, neither one, but I do trust Buffalo a little more.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what kind of set it apart for me. Like, if you're going to flip a coin, I'm going to go with number one. The Bills have a little bit better defense, and they have a decidedly different advantage as far as their home field goes. Once the weather starts getting ugly and you have to go there and play, so if they're a bad team, does that really weigh in too much? Probably not. But like, you're not afraid to go and hang out on South Beach for a road game in December. So.
It's crazy to say, but Ryan Tannehill is actually what pushes it over for me. No, they just don't have a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill, he is what he is, but he's had some good seasons.
He is better than Buffalo's quarterback situation somehow.
By all of them.
Right. For what it's worth, I didn't say I do agree with Rock and South. I have Pats, Jets, Bills, Dolphins, and I know we're not getting into records, but I do have the Bills and Dolphins drafting 1 and 2 in the draft next year.
Yeah, mine's pretty close too, and we'll kind of touch on a lot of that more when we get into our specific playoff and MVP predictions in a couple of weeks here. But so here's the next question I want to ask in the AFC East: who is the fantasy football MVP for 2018 in the AFC East?
I'm going to jump in and take my shots right away. So we were trying. I was trying to avoid just saying who's going to score the most points because that would be too much quarterback talk for me. Because it's going to be quarterbacks. My MVP, I took draft position a little bit, weighed in, and I'm absolutely going with the Jets, Isaiah Crowell here. That's my guy. That's my fantasy MVP from the AFC East. I'm a little scared of the backfield when Elijah McGuire was healthy, but then when he goes down and then when I saw what Crowell looked like, again, preseason game 1, you can't go crazy with it, but it is all we have to go on right now. And Crowell looks solid against the Falcons, including catching a touchdown pass. So that tells me he's going to be involved. And we're all high on the guy last year, and the Browns let game script after game script get away from them. And we all just said we expect the Jets to be more competitive of a team. So that's going to let them lean on this bell cow a little more. Bilal Powell's got his role. But for me, Crowell behind an okay line, but what I think is going to be a solid pass game to keep the defense honest. I think this is what we're going to see what we expected last year when a lot of people had Crowell ranked like RB15 going into drafts. So when you consider where he'll be drafted, Crowell's my MVP because I think he delivers an easy RB2 finish.
That Crowell kind of scares me. I mean, I have him the highest of all of the Jets, so I do think he's going to be the number one back there. I just think that each of them has such a distinct role, including McGuire, who, yes, he, is out right now, but it's only like a 3 to 5 week injury. So it's not going to be long-term. So he'll be back from all accounts. Listen, he fumbled in his preseason game, so I don't know where that's going to go, but Todd Bowles is still talking about his quote unquote Ferrari Trenton Cannon, who's a rookie as well. So it seems very Patriots-esque backfield to me. So Crowell scares me a little bit there. But more power to you. I didn't pick this guy just because he's going to be the number one scorer in this division, but because he's still the most important player in this division in real life and in fantasy, and that's Tom Brady. I mean, he's probably – we have him as QB like 5 or 6, I think, right now. Nationally, he's in most leagues, by most formats, he's QB number 3. So obviously you're going to have to spend high to get him, but until Tom Brady's not playing anymore, I think that he's still going to hit his ceiling numbers.
Yeah, I went with Brady as well, and I almost felt like this was probably the one I had the biggest cop-out on because I just looked at the landscape of this division, and I thought to myself, man, there really is a lot of trash to pick from.
Yeah, it's not good.
I thought about maybe, going with Crowell, and then I thought about the hype train derailment that I was a part of last year on Crowell. And I probably weighed in too heavily for me because Miles made some good points. But for me, Tom Brady, when you're talking about a guy who's probably going to throw for 4,600 yards, he's probably going to throw 35 touchdowns again. He's not going to turn the ball over. It seems almost like too much of a no-brainer, but I think that's kind of what drove me in the direction of Brady.
I think it's kind of crazy in the AFC East that you don't have, not even including the Patriots, you don't have one single legitimate, true number one wide receiver, hands down. You don't have, Shady is as close to a top back, but we all think that Shady's kind of on the downside, and Buffalo's in a lot of trouble with no quarterback, losing offensive lineman, so who knows what that's going to be. So you really have an entire division of no legitimate, no questions asked top players at running back, receiver, quarterback even. Now somebody could wind up if Sam Darnold starts from week 1, he could be the MVP just because you didn't draft Sam Darnold. So if he's making, if he's playing for you a week 14, 15 in your playoffs, something amazing happens. So that could be like an MVP scenario, but it's just.
I want to let Theo go here, but you could also probably make a case for Gronk.
Yeah, of course. Every year you can, but I picked Tom Brady too. It's so hard to pick against him, even though I've moved him down pretty dramatically in my rankings. Although Miles is catching up, I got him 9. Miles is back to 8 now, so I just got to keep convincing you to move him back a little bit more. But I can't say confidently that anybody else in the division can overtake him. Even if he is quarterback 9, he's still the MVP in that division for me.
Yeah, listen. I'm going to talk about Tom in just a little bit here, which is you'll see why I don't think he's the MVP, but he's a safe pick, largely. It's we have the Larry Fitzgerald argument all the time. Are you really going to predict Tom's going to fall off? I don't know.
He's not going to drop to 25.
Right, correct.
All right, so the next question: give me a breakout player for fantasy football this season from the division, and preferably here we're kind of looking at a name who's outside of a top 100 right now.
I'll go first. I picked Kenny Stills, and he's currently ranked. I thought I was going to be alone on that one for sure. He's currently ranked around wide receiver 50, about player number 126. He finished as, this is a crazy statistic, he finished as wide receiver 1 the same amount of times as Julio Jones last season.
Watch your mouth.
Which is pretty shocking. I heard in a text that Miles is never going to own Julio Jones again, and I wrote it down. It's the same.
I'm going to own him multiple times in a couple of weeks, and you and I both know it.
It's the same amount of time. It's the same thing I've said about Allen Hurns. Someone has to catch the ball there. In seasons where Tannehill's played 16 games, he's averaged 562 attempts. That's over 35 attempts per game. There are we already talked about, their defense is not going to be good. There's no reason he doesn't throw at least 35 times, probably more per game. I like Parker. I like Albert Wilson, but Stills has to see at least 20% of the target share there. So if he's getting those kind of looks, last season he saw 26.5%, and he shared the field with Jarvis Landry. 2016 he saw 26%. So there's no reason that 26% should drop off with the loss of Jarvis Landry. So I like him to see a lot of targets. We'll see what he does with them. He's not going to be wide receiver 1, but there's no way he's wide receiver 50.
Yeah, I'll just jump in because I agreed with you here. Not a ton to really add to what you're saying, except for he's improved his output every single year since being in Miami.
Yeah.
He had 105 targets last year, and that was with Jarvis Landry on the same team, who probably had, 305 targets?
At least.
So there's definitely going to be some targets to go around. They're going to be playing from behind quite a bit. Look, it might be garbage style points, but fantasy points are fantasy points. So, and you mentioned, Devontae Parker. He's already kind of like on the fritz with possible injury, possibly in the doghouse, maybe on the trade block. So, I just think he's going to have to be their number one there, and the volume is going to be critical.
Miles, you want to go?
Yeah, all right. I was trying not to jump in. Listen, I'm going to go receiver as well. I'm going to go even deeper dive, though, to the guy currently being drafted as wide receiver 81 across multiple sites. I'm going Corey Coleman. His name was brought up earlier. Listen, guy was kind of buried on Cleveland's depth chart, and you're going to sense a theme from me here tonight. And I like guys with fresh starts, and that's what Corey Coleman has here in Buffalo. We just talked about how bad the Bills possibly could be. And last year, you guys threw out target numbers, and that's great. And with the exception of losing Jordan Matthews from Buffalo, who was only 36 targets in his own right, there's not a ton of target share left, but they're going to throw way more with being behind and the quarterbacks they have now instead of Tyrod Taylor playing with the lead. So I do think there's a lot more targets to be had for Corey Coleman. That said, we just said the receivers, who are they? I don't like Kelvin Benjamin. I never have, and I definitely don't in Buffalo. Corey Coleman is playing with a guy. We've been gushing for weeks here about Patrick Mahomes throwing to Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins because we got a cannon-armed quarterback throwing to nothing but speed at receiver. But we do have that in Buffalo. Certainly, not even a totally broke man's Kansas City situation where Josh Allen's got a cannon, not overly accurate with it, but he's got a cannon. And, Twitter will tell you he looked terrible last week because they're going to focus on that 4th and goal play where he made a questionable decision. But overall, Josh Allen actually looked pretty decent in their first game. And Corey Coleman can definitely run with the best of them. And I think that fresh situation could give him a situation where, he starts catching the ball a little bit better. And I think what this could boil down to is, listen, the guy's not going to finish with 1,200 yards. But you think about Robbie Anderson last year, had that 4 or 5 week stretch where he scored every week.
Where he won games.
And that could be a situation that you have in bye weeks with Corey Coleman where he's got that explosive ability that if Corey Coleman gives you a 3 for 90 and a touchdown, you're juiced that you started him on a bye week scare or an injury scare. So, he costs you nothing. Costs you less than nothing. He's a waiver wire guy. And not even a waiver wire guy you have to compete with. Put in a $0 bid. Let it go till Wednesday and pick him up as a free agent. He'll be there, and he's got potential. That's what we're fishing for here, right? Is potential to break out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I went with a completely homer pick here, but I'm going to go Sam Darnold.
I'm shocked. Shocked.
I think he's going to start from day one.
Color me green.
As I think a lot of people are starting to notice. There's no reason why he wouldn't. And honestly, by the time your bye weeks start coming around, you have an injury to a quarterback. This is a guy that's going to be on a team that we expect to be competitive, but still having to throw the ball to keep pace with some teams. So I think the maturation process of him in real life is actually going to speak volumes for his fantasy value too as the season goes on. No, I'm not going to draft Sam Darnold and start him week 1, but similar to the guys we're talking about, you don't have to draft Sam Darnold. You could just keep an eye on him on the waiver wire, and you have a quarterback go down with injury or need a quick bye week replacement if you're a guy that streams, quarterbacks or Or if you're in a deeper quarterback league, definitely two or like Miles has a 3 quarterback league. That's a guy that you want to keep an eye on. Late in the draft or as soon as free agency hits.
Yeah, and on top of that, the Jets' schedule is not murderer's row this year. So multi-quarterback Darnold really could be gold for you.
All right, so on the flip side here, give me a fantasy dud from the AFC East in 2018. We're talking about a name typically inside of the top 100 ranks.
See, I didn't for this. I wanted to give all of our listeners fair warning, and I didn't necessarily go with a name inside the top 100. I just want to let everybody know you need to avoid any quarterback that starts in Buffalo. I don't care who it is. I don't care what week it is. I don't care what down and distance it is. Do not roster a Buffalo Bills quarterback this year. That's my fantasy advice to you. All 3 of them are duds. All 3 of them are not going to help you, and I wanted to make that point known.
This is how Rocco wins these types of competitions and stuff. Like, seriously.
I swear that's my only one. That's my only one of the night. Dud. I swear.
Don't draft Dan Marino. He's good for 0.
Yeah, don't draft a quarterback from the team that hasn't decided who they're going to start and probably is getting the number 1 pick.
My turn to talk about Tom Brady. This is my dud this year. He is currently being drafted as the 3rd overall quarterback across most sites, 51st overall, which puts him right at the beginning of that 6th round, maybe at the end of the 5th in your 12-teamers. I can't with Tom Brady right now. Like Deal alluded to, I've bumped him down to 8 here recently. I just think this is the year, not that he falls off as a player. I think the Patriots are still a division championship team. They're absolutely still a Super Bowl caliber team. The wide receiver core did take a hit with the loss of Brandon Cooks and explosiveness. And I do like Chris Hogan. And I think overall they've got a lot of guys who can really play. Of course, Gronk's still there should he stay healthy. But what I see the Pats doing this offseason is bulking up that backfield. And I think they're going to be more balanced, like Josh McDaniels balanced. So like 80% pass instead of 89%. But, you can see them seeing Tom's going to slow it down a little bit. We brought in Sony Michel. We've got Rex Burkhead still. We've got James White still. They bring in Jeremy Hill, which, laugh if you want to, that's a goal line vulture. Dude
still,
is going
still a warm body.
Yeah, I mean, if it's first and goal from the 5, he could score in 3 runs.
If you give him 5 carries, he'll get it in.
3 runs. He's good for 1.6. But listen, ultimately, I'm not saying Tom's going to fall off and be horrible, but I can absolutely see a scenario this year where the Pats are still a really good team, but Brady ends at that QB1, QB2 borderline where he ends the season as 10, 11, 12. And it's with how deep quarterback is. This is the deepest quarterback has ever been in the history of fantasy. And that's not like superlative. That's just true. That's absolutely just true. For you to take your 5th or 6th round pick on Tom when you can wait like 7 rounds and get Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers, like that's a dud to me. It's not the fact that he's going to end at QB 20, but I could have waited 7 rounds and got a guy with the same production. That's my don't pump the brakes on Tom for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go quickly just for the interest of time and just get my points out quick. I'm going with Rex Burkhead, running back for the Patriots. Look, right now he's going on average like number 70 overall as running back 26. That's the trend right now. When has anybody named Rex ever panned out in the NFL?
Rex Grossman's a Super Bowl quarterback, man.
Come on. Let's get serious. Look, in all seriousness, like we're ready to kind of put like the next, sneaky good thing out of New England crown on him. He's never had more than 74 carries in a single season. So he's not going to be any kind of workhorse. His yards per attempt do not jump off the page. He's got 8 career rushing touchdowns. I think like 3 of them came in a single game last year. As far as his receiving stats, look, he's a pretty decent receiver. He had 30 catches last year on 36 targets, so he's efficient there. 250 yards. He had 3 additional scores in that one, in that category. But honestly, like, I just don't see with the additions that they've made at the running back position, mostly in Sony Michel, you still have James White on the team, who's a far superior receiver and who Brady really kind of still trusts in that role. he's not a running back 26. He may still be productive, but this is not a guy that I'm looking at as a flex. It just cannot happen.
Yeah, I didn't pick him, but it's alarming that Isaiah Crowell and Chris Thompson are being drafted behind him. Like,
shocking.
Come on. I was early on the train to be down on Shady. Now others are jumping aboard for different reasons, but LaShawn McCoy is my answer. I'm still down on him, whether he plays or not. He's going to get the volume. I just don't think he can put up numbers consistently, especially to be drafted as the RB14. I can't draft him there because he could very well finish up there. He just has such a bad team around him that he just has no help. He's going to have weeks where he has a terrible game and could cost you because RB14, he's going to be some people's RB1. Even if he's your RB2, I'm a little bit nervous there.
All right, let's talk about the AFC North. We're going to move a little quicker on the order of finish here just because of time, and we're going to discuss more about this coming up in a couple of weeks here. But just give me your projected order of finish in the AFC North.
Yeah, I have Bengals, Steelers, Browns, Ravens. I think this is the year the crown turns over.
Ooh.
I have Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Ravens. So we don't agree on the Bengals.
I've got Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, and Browns personally.
I've got Steelers, Bengals, Browns, Ravens. All four different answers.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how that breaks out when we do our playoff predictions and stuff in a couple of weeks. But who is going to be the fantasy football MVP of the AFC North in 2018?
I mean, it's so I didn't say Lev or AB because I don't want to be boring. Like, they're going to be the two highest scoring skill guys. They just are, barring something crazy, right?
Should be.
I mean, I don't know. All right. Well, I'll just say my guy that I'm going with Cincinnati's Joe Mixon. He's been a goon guy from day one here. We're on that guy. I mean, Bell and Brown give me zero reason to think they won't end the year as top three players at the positions. But for me, I think Mixon, he's a second or even third round pick that I expect to make that Kareem Hunt-like leap where he's a no-brainer first rounder next year. Cincinnati's offense, I just said they're a division champion. The line's going to be way better. Mixon has ability through the roof. He was proficient last year at times. I'm really selling the guy. He was okay some of the time. But, you know, when Cincy blocked it upright, let's be honest, Mixon was good. Gio was good. The offense ran better. I fully expect this to be an offensive line's way better thing. So I have both Mixon and Gio better. But I think Mixon just has that prototypical build. He's an every down workhorse back. Looks great out of the backfield. Dude is explosive as anything. If I expect the team to be better, it's going to be because of him.
It's Lev for me. It's always Lev. If we project him to play, I can't pick somebody else. He scores between 17 to 20 points per game the last two seasons, and he just does it year after year. So if he's on the field, there's no way I can pick against him, similar to Tom Brady.
Yeah, I went Lev too, and it's for a little different reason, just because I think he's going to actually exceed expectations this year.
Very well could.
I'm saying that knowing full well that his expectations are extremely high. And Miles, you made a good point. Like, it's easy to just go with some of these names, but he played 15 games last year. There's no reason right now to think that he's not going to play all 16. There's no reason right now to believe the Steelers are not going to wear off every remaining bit of tread on the tires. So I'm expecting somewhere around 350 carries this year. I think he's probably a lock for like 1,350 to 1,400 rushing. Could easily.
Then you throw in his 80 catches.
Yeah. I mean, he could easily score 10 to 12 times on the ground. And we haven't even gotten to what he's going to do in the receiving game. He caught 85 balls last year, 655 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. If he repeats that this year, and you're talking about a 2,000-yard, combined back here with upwards of 15 touchdowns, I think he's going to go for 2,200 total combined yards this year.
Wow.
And 15 touchdowns.
So you're right. You guys are right. The easy answer is Lev here. I went with Miles, though. I went with Mixon. And the reason I went with Mixon is I think you're going to get, top 10 fantasy production at running back, and you get him end of the second, early third, maybe even late third, depending on who you draft with. I mean, that might be a stretch, but I mean, you have to use one of the top 1 or 2 picks on Lev Bell, and you're going to get Mixon maybe 2 full rounds later. That's crazy to me, and you're going to get top 10 running back production. It's going to be lower than Lev. I get that. I understand. I'm not debating that. But for where you have to draft them, I think the value favors Mixon more.
All right, so give me a breakout player for fantasy this season from the AFC North.
I'm going to go first here just because I want to get this out and then never talk about it again. I have bashed this guy for a long time, but I got to get on the Carlos Hyde train for a second here.
I was so nervous you were going to say Joe Flacco.
I would have turned my computer off.
No. Listen, Carlos Hyde finished running back 8 last year. The Browns went out, spent some money on him. Yes, they have other weapons in that backfield. I understand that. I'm not denying that. But I think we're going to see, especially if Tyrod starts, we're going to see it. And if Mayfield starts, I think we're going to see it for different reasons. But I think they want to run the ball. I think they want to protect their quarterbacks. Tyrod is not a quarterback who's going to throw it 45 times a game. Mayfield might be one day, but they're going to ease him into that. They're not going to let him just come out there, start week 1 and do it. So whoever starts for you, this is going to be a run-heavy team. Carlos Hyde right now is running back 45 among most national sites. That's really low for a guy who finished 8th overall, then got a contract from the Browns, somewhat committing to him. Like I said, I understand they have Duke Johnson. They drafted Nick Chubb. But I think Nick Chubb is like your back of the future, and Duke Johnson is your PPR guy. Carlos Hyde is their guy they're going to work into the ground now.
I'll go. I'm going deep dive here, so put on your scuba gear. Currently, wide receiver 75, number 206 overall, John Ross, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, this is definitely a Hail Mary, but this is a guy who really didn't get a chance to get himself going last year. He was drafted in the first round at number 9 overall last year by the Bengals. He was banged up, really didn't have any kind of chance to get any traction in the offense last year. So now he's had an entire season on the team to learn the offense. The Bengals moved on from Brandon LaFell. However you feel about Brandon LaFell, the last couple of years, the Bengals have had a really productive wide receiver 2 alongside with A.J. Green. Right now, that kind of figures to be John Ross. I don't expect that he's going to be a top 10, top 20 wide receiver by any means. But when we're talking about a guy who's largely going undrafted or like the last 2 rounds at best right now, considering his upside, his pure speed, the production that number 2 spot has had in that offense over the past couple of years, I've got to believe that he could be a potential steal for you in free agency or as a very last pick of your draft.
You didn't go deep enough.
I didn't
go deep enough. No.
Take me deeper.
You hit me with receiver 75. I'm going to hit you with wide receiver 83.
Ooh.
83. John Brown. Don't sleep on John Brown in Baltimore. All the stuff I said about Corey Coleman in the AFC East thing, I'm going to say about John Brown now. Ravens are going to be bad. They got a big arm quarterback. He's got a ton of speed. But what I'll say on top of the Bills thing with Coleman, all the reports I'm hearing out of Baltimore is that John Brown is very clearly outplaying Michael Crabtree to be the top target in that passing game. They always throw the ball a ton. Now they're going to be chasing even more than I think they have in the past. If you don't want to own John Brown in season long, fine. But he's the type of guy that's going to really pay dividends in daily. Don't fall asleep on John Brown when you're picking daily, especially early in the season before he explodes.
Yeah, I'm going deep here too. And the beneficiary from John Ross, I picked Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, he's currently 189, quarterback number 26, going undrafted. Andy Dalton, we're quick to forget, had some good seasons. Now, I'm not saying he's going to finish as a QB1, but there's no way he's going to finish back at 26. He's had just 2 years ago, he had 4,200 yards. Twice in his career, he's had 4,200 yards. He's always pretty efficient. He's had some down years in his yardage. but he's always throwing more touchdowns, a lot more touchdowns than interceptions. And this season, I look for him to have a good running game, so it's going to be more open for him. I love A.J. Green still. I like John Ross. I like Tyler Boyd. Auden Tate might be good. Tyler Eifert's still there. His running backs are really, really good receivers. So I like him to have a bounce back season here. I picked Andy Dalton to have his best passing season of his career. I look for him to throw for 4,400 yards, and I look for him to throw 35 touchdowns. So there's no way. I'm writing it down. There's no way it's finishing back at number 26, and he's going to have a bounce back year this year.
That's like QB 3 or 4 material. That would have led the league last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I have to look that up.
A lot of injuries, but probably.
Nonetheless, I mean, hey, more power to him, and it makes it. I mean, we just spent the last 10 minutes partially drooling over Joe Mixon and John Ross. We didn't bring up A.J. Green, who's a god.
Yep.
I mean, it's that Eli Manning talk from a couple weeks ago, except Andy Dalton's better than Eli Manning at this point in their careers.
All right, so give me a fantasy dud from the AFC North.
Yeah, this one hurts me. I'm going with Cleveland's Nick Chubb. I mean, that's my guy. Go Dogs and all that. But, I mean, we only have a couple weeks to go off of. Based on what I'm reading from Browns beat guys, as well as what I saw in the preseason game, he doesn't look explosive at all the way he did in Georgia, making people miss. Now, he looked okay in the pass game, but, I mean, 15 carries, he did squat with it. So they want to get him involved. It wasn't happening. I'm half wondering if this is, we anymore just want rookies to take off right away. And sometimes the game just is a little too fast for you. The hole closes up faster than it did in the SEC. And I'm wondering if that's what's going on with him. On top of that, the Browns have a guy in Hyde, have a guy in Duke Johnson where they don't need to force him on the field and wreck his confidence. So I'm not going to be surprised at all if the Browns kind of redshirt both of their rookies with Mayfield and Chubb and just come out hot with them in 2019.
I think you have the right team, right position, wrong guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I'm going with Duke Johnson. Look, when I first wrote this afternoon, he had number 87 overall ADP. That's kind of slid back right now based on data to 103, so I'm kind of cheating here. But he is going as running back 32 right now. It's largely based on his receiving numbers because as a pure rusher, Hugh Jackson never really – I don't know if he never gave him the chance or it's just not there, but he only had 82 carries last year. It didn't translate to a whole lot, just around 4 yards per attempt. He had 4 rushing touchdowns, but it was clear that he didn't view him as his pure rusher on the team. He did have 74 catches on 93 targets. I can't see any real way that those targets are going to return to him this year when you've added Jarvis Landry. You've got David Njoku now. You've got Josh Gordon on the team. You might potentially be bringing in another wide receiver in Des Bryant. There's just too many, believe it or not, really talented options in the Cleveland offense for Duke Johnson to come around to 93 targets again this year. I don't dislike Duke Johnson. I still think that he's probably going to be like a 60 target kind of back. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do enough with it to warrant that running back 32 spot.
Yeah, and I went up even a little bit higher on our Goons draft board and a lot of people's draft boards. I went with Alex Collins. I'm not 100% sure that he's the best back in that backfield. I don't know if they believe that he's the best back in that backfield. And on top of that, I don't think they're going to be in a position to try and play run control in games. So I don't think he's the most talented back in their backfield, and I don't see them running a lot. Therefore, I mean, we have him as running back 21 or 22, I believe. I've seen other sites where he's inside the top 20, but right around that general vicinity. There are about 25 guys I'd rather have than Alex Collins, and that's saying it lightly.
I actually picked all the Ravens. I don't want any of them. Not even a joke. I don't think there's a player on that team worth taking at their current ADP. Even Alex Collins at RB on Fantasy Pros, he's RB 19. I can't take him at RB 19. I actually do think he is the most talented running back on the team, but I don't know that they're going to use him like a bell cow running back. And at RB19, I really need that. So, we have guys like Lamar Miller, Kenyon Drake, Royce Freeman, Rashad Penny around that number. So I can't take Alex Collins there, not knowing with still the shakiness in that situation.
All right, let's take a second here to take a pause and talk about our friends at Gorb. Look, if you've been on social media at all over the past couple weeks, you follow anything that we do on social media, you've probably seen the posts out there with the hashtag Gorb, all kinds of great stuff being promoted by them, just giving you a real life look at what Gorb is really all about. And that's either get hungry or be hungry. That's their mission statement. Miles is rocking the shirt today because it's good every now and then to get that reminder for yourself that in life, you've got two choices. You could either get hungry or you could be hungry. And getting hungry is about finding out what you're passionate about, what you want to chase after, what really fuels you, and just going after it instead of being hungry and always wishing that you would have pursued your dreams and your desires. Look, check them out at gorb.com. They've got all kinds of great gear, shirts, hoodies, all kinds of great stuff, all kinds of colors, designs for men, for women, for kids. They've got you covered there. Gorb.com, GHORBH.com. And check them out on social media as well using the hashtag GHORBH. All right, guys, let's talk about the AFC South. Real quick, the 2017 finish was Jaguars 10-6, Titans 9-7, Colts 4-12, Texans 4-12. I think we're all going to expect this to be a tight division, which we'll get into in a couple weeks. But give me just your projected order of finish.
Yeah, I have Titans, Jaguars, Colts, Texans. I do have them all between 10-6 and 7-9, though.
I have Jaguars, Texans, Titans, Colts.
I have the same. I have Jaguars, Texans, Titans, Colts. It's all really close.
I picked the Colts to win that division. I picked Colts, Jags, Texans, Titans.
All right, so who's going to be the fantasy football MVP of the AFC South in 2018? And we're gonna get right into this because I think that we're gonna beat up on one person here.
Yeah, Dale, you want to go first? You want me to take it?
Yeah, it's Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
I'm biased here, of course, but currently his ADP is about 100.5. In a standard league, you're getting Andrew Luck in the 10th round. You're getting him in the 10th round, a guy that has absolute top 5 quarterback, easily top 5 quarterback numbers. You're getting him in the 10th round. Essentially, you're getting a guy for free back that very well could throw for 5,040 touchdowns. You're getting him where you're going to be taking a flyer on a running back, maybe a tight end that's tight end number 12 in your league. You're getting a guy that could be the leading scorer in the whole league.
Yeah, I mean this is my further point of the Tom Brady thing. Like, who out there is going to be shocked if Andrew Luck and Tom Brady have the same numbers?
Right.
And it's 5 rounds later. I mean, he's being drafted as QB9, which could go up a little bit the more he proves his health. But we're letting last year cloud what this guy's potential is because he didn't play last year. Every time he's in, his numbers are through the roof. Interceptions need to come down a little bit, but for the most part, dude is a lock as top 5. I think he's QB2 overall this year.
I don't have to add too much to this because I also have him. But I am going to say this. In 2016, with 1.5 shoulders, he still threw for over 4,200 yards and 31 touchdowns. And we looked at that as a down season because our expectations were so extremely high for him. So if that's a down season,
yeah,
he's got 2 good shoulders now, and he's playing the 6th easiest on paper now quarterback schedule of anyone in the league this year.
And by all accounts, probably the best offensive line he's ever had.
Definitely. Right. Already it's the best.
I mean, just because Quentin Nelson's there, it's the best.
Yeah.
Because he's the only NFL caliber offensive lineman that Luck's played with.
All right, Rock, take your lumps.
Yeah, Rock, go ahead with your wrong answer. I'm going to guess Leonard Fournette because go Jags.
Hey, guys, what's the most important position in fantasy football?
Running back.
It's Leonard Fournette. Listen, I love Andrew Luck. The value is great. But you guys talk about all the time how the quarterback position is not where you need to hit home runs. You can get Andrew Luck production. If he winds up number 2, Miles, you win this argument. I get that. But even if Andrew Luck has a great season and 4,000 yards, 25 to 30 touchdowns, you can get that from other quarterbacks after that. If Leonard Fournette has the type of year that I think he's capable of, we're talking about him as RB1. And that's just how I feel about it. I feel like
ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all be happy.
Yeah, you just exactly. Said we can't if Luck.
No, I didn't know. I didn't say you can't if Luck. I said if he has the type of season you're talking about, I understand that. But running back is the most important position in fantasy football. We talk about it all the time. I'm higher on Fournette than you guys are. I get that too. I have him right now as my number 5. All 3 of you, I think, have him either 9 or 10 at this point. I think he's in for a 15 to 1,600 yard season on the ground, double-digit touchdowns. I think they are going to just build that entire offense around him and just ride him and that defense back to the playoffs. That's what I expect from the Jags this season.
You're right. That is going to be amazing when he does that in 12 games.
So given that, I have Leonard Fournette as my fantasy MVP.
Look, I'm knocking you, but really the only reason why I wouldn't totally agree is I just don't see him playing 16 games. You don't.
Say that, but
going back to LSU, he's just not a picture of health kind of guy.
He doesn't play full seasons.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I never predict injury. I'm not gonna do it, but it does.
I do.
We're aware. Yeah, you had Jamal Charles like RB38 when he was an MVP candidate, but. I mean, but it does have to give you pause. Like, I think Leonard Fournette's at max like an 1,100-yard back, and I'm going to echo what you said about Luck. I can get that later. So I don't disagree with you. I like him. I think he's
1,100-yard back. You say later. You have him 10.
First round. I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not dumping on your pick here, but I'm just saying,
no. But like, there's not going to be 20 running backs that run for 1,000 yards. There's going to be
there's going to be more than last season, though.
Yeah, I agree.
We've been saying that for a while now.
Last season was the worst one.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, even if we have 14 to 15, you guys have them at 10. You can get 5 other running backs. You're drafting Leonard Fournette and all 5 of those running backs before the 3rd round, or by the end of the 3rd round. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, some Leonard Fournette in a 10 or 12 team league is going to go in the 1st round. In an 8-team league, he's probably going to go middle of the 2nd or very beginning of the 2nd, depending. Like, I just don't see how the drop off is that much. From like as a floor for Leonard, he's an 1,100-yard back.
See, I think that's a ceiling. Maybe not ceiling, but that's an upper end year for him. That's not a floor. There's no way that's a floor.
All right, so. We'll talk about breakout players here. And I'm going to go first because I want to help Rocco feel better because I'm going to pick a Jag. I know he's closet Jags, man. Breakout player this year, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's number 163 overall right now. He's tight end 20 at best right now. Here's a guy who had a pretty good season last year. He jumped over to the Jaguars this season to take over for Mercedes Lewis, who had 5 touchdowns last year. Significantly better athlete than Mercedes Lewis. And from everything that I'm hearing and reading to this point, his chemistry is pretty good with Blake Bortles at this point. I think the fact that they have Leonard Fournette, they've improved their offensive front, is going to open up opportunities for him in the red zone to be a good weapon there for the Jaguars. This is a team who traditionally looks to a tight end. Basically, when they're not looking at Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's gone now. Their outside weapons are not as good as I think that they were previously. So it's just going to open up opportunities. ASJ had 3 touchdowns last year on a pretty bad team because of his athletic ability.
He had 4.
Where's his 4th?
The fumble.
I just wanted to bring it up.
I was like, I meticulously researched.
No, He had 3.
But look, I expect that he's going to have more targets than he did last year. He's going to have more scores than he had last year, more yardage. It's just a good situation for him, and he'll do a lot better than tight end 20.
I'm going to keep the Jags train rolling right here.
Ooh.
And I'm going to keep the receiver train I've been going with. I've given you guys wide receiver 83. I've given you wide receiver 81. I can't express how badly I wanted to give you wide receiver 88 with Ryan Grant because I'm hearing great things out of Colts camp. But I'm going to go real shallow here up to wide receiver 69 with Keelan Cole. I like Keelan Cole and the Jags. This looks like a jam-packed receiver room with Cole and Dede Westbrook and Marquise Lee and Dante Moncrief and DJ Chark. I've not read a single thing that says Cole isn't clearly separating himself as the number one. Then he had a stretch last year at the end of the season, which I do think can carry over. Weeks 12 to 15, he totaled 19 catches, 442 yards, and 3 touchdowns in those 4 weeks. Expanded to 16 games, which of course you can just do. 76 catches, 1,768 yards, and 12 touchdowns. So listen, that's not my projection.
Basically going to get 1,700 yards.
Yeah, he's basically a lock for 1,700. But I just think it's one of those situations where somebody's going to get the targets, somebody's going to get the catches. But I think in Jacksonville's offense, I don't say that in an insulting way like we do in Buffalo. If Buffalo's going to complete some passes, it might be a Corey Coleman. I think Jacksonville's a really efficient offense. We always laugh at Blake Bortles. Well, he's consistently a top 15 quarterback in fantasy. They put up numbers. They just will. I think he's the number one. He has good chemistry with Bortles, as they showed late in the season. Even if the Jags kind of pound people into the ground with Fournette, like Rock clearly thinks they're going to, what's nice about a guy like Cole and a lot of these breakout guys, you don't have any draft capital invested in this guy. He's clearly like a deep double-digit round guy or a waiver pickup. But I think he's a number one receiver. He put up the numbers to show me that last year, and by all accounts is having a great camp in his second year. So if you're the type that wants to invest in a Jags receiver, because one of them's going to break out, he's the one. He's got to be the one.
Yeah, I stay with the Colts. Yeah, I thought about Dede. I thought about Blake Bortles. They were 2 and 3 for me. I landed on Jordan Wilkins. He's currently being undrafted for the most part in every league. So essentially it's going to cost you nothing. You can even risk leaving him on the waivers if you beat everyone else to him. If he takes off or Mac gets hurt. Yep. Mac's already dinged up a little bit. I'm waiting for him to ascend. I still love him, but he's already waiting for somebody to take his job. And it's a low-risk, high-reward opportunity. Jordan Wilkins is an explosive playmaker. He's currently 3rd on the depth chart. He very well could stay there, but he's not going to cost you anything, and he's a guy that could take off and put up good numbers.
All right, so give me a fantasy dud in the AFC South this year.
I'm not going to stand on the table here. I don't feel super passionately, but it's Deshaun Watson for me.
Yeah.
Just where he's being drafted is with far more established quarterbacks. I mean, he's up there with the Bradys and the Rodgers and the Brees. I don't think he belongs up there, mostly not because of talent. He's obviously a great player. He's got great skill guys. But for me, it boils back to, number one, that deepest quarterback crop in history. We're there. So I don't see the need to reach on a guy we very well may have seen like the best 7-game stretch he'll ever have. I'm not going to project it. I'm not going to predict it. He's a classic Miles. He may have a great fantasy season. It just won't be on my team.
Yeah, I also picked Deshaun Watson. It's not based on his play. It's just based on his ADP.
Yep, he's too high.
He's being drafted as QB2. So that's just so rich for 7 games under his belt, 2 of which he threw for under 126 yards. And the masses are jumping too early at a limited sample size. I know I've said that before, but it's the truth with Deshaun Watson. There's no way I can draft him in the 7th round ahead of well-established quarterbacks that you can get at the end of your draft. You can get Ben Roethlisberger's, Matt Stafford's, and Phillip Rivers back when people were taking kickers and defenses. There's no way I can take a guy that played 7 games, and 2 of them weren't good.
Yeah, the value here is what gets me on Watson. I have him as well. I don't like the small sample size because everybody knows I hate the small sample size. But on top of it, It's the quarterback position we talk about all the time is way too deep for you to take him at 4 when you can take Ben Roethlisberger as the QB 12.
Yep.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
I went with Texans, and I went with Will Fuller, which is, previously been known as Rocco's boy. I'm kind of picking on Rocco a little bit here because it's players that he in the past had liked, whatever. But look, right now he's going number 70 overall, number 29 at the wide receiver position. It's just too high for a guy who's going to be like a roller coaster ride all season long. There's just no way that he's going to keep up. Was it like the 7.7 or 7.1? Every 7.1 targets, he scored a touchdown last year. Sammy Watkins was number 2 at 8.8, Juju 11.3. I read something earlier and I wrote it down. The last 3 players who were in that 7.1 territory were Dante Moncrief, Taylor Gabriel, and Kenny Stills 2 years ago. And none of them really kept up, that pace. So other than, looking like a Pirates of the Caribbean character, there's nothing super appealing about Will Fuller to me. I think he's just going to be so boom or bust this year. He's not going to go over like 30, 35 catches. I can't
recover from that.
No, but listen, when he does flash, he's going to have a couple weeks where he's a top 10 wide receiver. But honestly, like I'm not into it for the 3 or 4 weeks in a row where he's going to be wide receiver 75 for the week.
He's a money cash player. Like find a game where the Texans are going against a team with one good corner and the rest of the secondary is trash, and they're going to try to lock down Hopkins, and Fuller's going to score.
On a deep ball.
I agree with you, South. I'm just saying that's the type of fantasy season I expect out of Fuller. I'll roster him some on FanDuel, but I doubt I'll have him at all in season long.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll have him on season long.
I'm aware.
I'll take the chance.
Yeah. Mr. Sample Size wants Will Fuller. All right, AFC West. AFC West 2017 finish was the Chiefs at 10-6, the Chargers at 9-7, the Raiders at 6-10, the Broncos at 5-11. I think everybody expects this is another close division. Give me your projected finish 2018.
I have Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders.
I have Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos.
Rock, I see you shaking your head. I think I'm going to jump into it. I have Raiders, Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos.
Wow, we are all 4 different on this one too. I have Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos. So
we are all Raiders. Over. What in the world is the appeal there? Anyways, let's move on.
All right, so let's talk about the fantasy MVP for the AFC West in 2018.
All right, shocker alert. I'm going to go with Keenan Allen.
Whoa.
I'm going to go way out of my comfort zone.
I did not see that coming.
Listen, as fantasy players across the world, we all have favorites. You all have your guy. I don't know that I have more of a my guy than Keenan Allen. I'll take Keenan Allen 3 years after he retires, just believing he can come back and make it happen. But the dude held up health-wise last year. And if you think there's any other question to his game, this isn't fantasy football is not for you. Like, health is the only question for him. He's a dominant receiver. He's always open. He has top whatever hands in the league. I mean, I don't want to insult other players, but I don't think anybody has noticeably better hands than Keenan Allen. He plays on an awesome offense. His quarterback is efficient as anything. He's got a great run game. And in spite of all that sharing, all he does is produce. And now the end zone targets are up for grabs. And I do expect his buddy Mike Williams to take some of that, but he's going to get some too, because the tight end has been their money position in the red zone, and tight end's not there now, assuming Antonio Gates doesn't come back. But listen, he's consensus receiver 6 pre-rank. I want to go ahead and say he'll finish higher than that. I'm not sure, but what I will say is even if he finishes receiver 6, it's not because he's down. It's because AB and Julio and Odell and DeAndre and Mike Tom are that good too. So I do think if he finishes receiver 6, it's with numbers that most years are a top 3 receiver position. And this guy's a lock for your second-round pick. If you leave with a running back in the first and Keenan in the second, you need to feel amazing about it. Absolutely amazing about it. I'll just say I'm not ready to reveal my write-it-down numbers for Keenan Allen yet. They will be write-it-down worthy.
They will be 3,000 yards.
It'll approach it, at least approach 3,000.
I went with a Charger as well. I'm going with Melvin Gordon here. Look, I feel like Melvin Gordon gets kind of lost among the elites at the running back position. In his last 29 games, 24 times he's been, at worst, RB2 for that week. At worst, that's RB2. Good. So, look, you could talk about whether or not he gets banged up or whatever. You could talk about whether Austin Eckler is going to start to steal some carries away from him. I'm not buying into any of that. He's a guy who he gets the attempts every single year now, other than his rookie campaign. Went over 1,100 yards last year. He had 8 touchdowns. He's clearly their favorite guy for running the ball in the red zone. I know there was some concern about that last year when Eckler kind of came into the picture. I'm not that worried about it. He's still going to get a decent amount of targets in the passing game as well. He had 83 last year. So this is a high-scoring offense. They're going to be productive. I would expect that he's going to continue to have these really, really strong outputs. And considering that you can get him at the back end of the first round or high second round and potentially get a top 5 running back, that's really good return on that investment.
Yeah, I wanted to go with Melvin too here because, again, all the reasons Sal said, there's nothing that you can really argue. Where I landed, though, is kind of why, not to dive into too much, but kind of why I believe the Raiders are going to be back is I have my MVP actually as Derek Carr in this division. I really think that he's going to step up big with John Gruden. I know that makes Miles so uncomfortable to say.
You're going to be sick.
Listen, between the relationship that Gruden can bring to him, if Gruden can still have that quarterback whisperer mentality, the guy won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson. So if you can do that, I know the defense, Miles. I'm really trying to poke at you now, but no, but he does have.
You're poking the bear, and I'm.
He does have the ability to get the most out of his quarterbacks. Is my point. I think he can open up Derek Carr a little bit more. We already know that he has the weapons. I love Amari, and you guys are telling me I'm wrong on Jordy's too old and Martavis is too stupid. But if you guys are right, and and Amari is what I know and think he can be, and the rest of the world does too. There's no reason to think that Derek Carr, who we currently have as like quarterback 19, and I've seen him as low as quarterback 22, which is insane. I don't see any reason why he's not the MVP because he can give you top 10 quarterback production.
I have him as quarterback 22.
It's insane.
Just saying.
I picked Melvin Gordon too. I've loved Melvin Gordon since college. Over the past 3 seasons, he's gotten progressively better in every stat category every season. He's a lock to get well over 300 touches again this season, and he's great in the PPR game. So, yeah, I love Melvin Gordon.
All right, so let's talk about our breakout players for 2018 in the AFC West.
I went with his buddy, who's also my buddy, Mike Williams. He was drafted number 7 for a reason. Currently, he's number 135, wide receiver 53. Basically, they don't have a tight end there. They have a lot of targets vacated because of it, especially in the red zone, especially in the 10 zone, where he should excel because of his size. Between him and Keenan, they're basically unguardable if they're inside the 40. Just throw the ball up, and one of them will catch it. It's not a situation where they should run to both corners. They should both run to one corner, throw it up. As far as Derek Carr can throw is as far as they should score every time down the field.
Rivers.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's not give Derek Carr any undue credit.
Well, I mean, if Derek Carr could throw from Oakland to LA, it would be great.
Yeah, throw it to those 2 guys. That's correct.
I also – oh, go ahead, Moss.
Well, I cheated here. I'm inside the top 100, but Royce Freeman's my breakout guy in this division. I think he's a second-tier running back. So behind that top 4 to 5, Freeman's going to be in that next group next year. Outstanding vision was probably his best draft quality coming out in the draft, and we saw it on display already in the preseason here for Denver. I don't like Devontae Booker even some. I don't think I'm alone even on the Broncos coaching staff. So, the guy, he's certainly not cheap. He's RB25, but he's worth that pick because I think he delivers an easy top 15 finish.
Yeah, I went with Mike Williams also. I think with that big body and the lack of red zone targets that are normally going to the tight end, that's going to be wide open. So even if he doesn't get a ton of looks, which I think he's going to because they drafted him number 7, I could picture him having a very Will Fuller type season from last year where, yes, he only catches 30 to 40 balls, but a lot of them are red zone targets and a lot of them are touchdowns. I could see 7 to 10 touchdowns, but a low catch number. But from a guy that's wide receiver 70 right now, I think by most formats, or 68 actually. That's a slam dunk.
All right, I cheated too, and I thought I was going to be the only one that cheated, but I do agree.
Dang cheaters, man!
I do agree. It's going to be Royce Freeman.
Yes,
and I think that we're kind of right at the point in the curve where we're going to stop seeing that he has such a low ADP at this point. Because people are catching on to it and people are understanding now that, look, this guy's for real. There's really no threat other than him and the Broncos backfield. We might not know or have a clear picture of what he could do at the pro level, but we do know that for the most part, Devontae Booker has been ineffective. We know that CJ Anderson is gone. So for a team who runs a similar blocking scheme to what Chicago's doing, he has a similar, kind of profile to Jordan Howard as a runner. So that all to me adds up that he's going to have every chance to be productive, to come in and be 1,000-yard back and be their number one option in the running game. That's why for me, I know that he's creeping up in ADP, so it's kind of cheap to make the pick. But while we're still kind of at that curve point, I felt like I wanted to jump on him.
I feel like South shouldn't be allowed to pick Royce Freeman because back when we were talking draft running backs and I was super high on Royce Freeman, mainly because I love Oregon, South was telling me how crazy I was because of all the high mileage he has on him. So I think it's only fair that South shouldn't get to pick him now.
That's a very different conversation because I was just with South on that. I'm not going to invest a second-round NFL pick on him because of that mileage. But if I'm going to pick him in fantasy, I only need him to be great this year. I don't care if he wears out by the time he's 26.
I only need him 16 games. I only need him 16
all right,
games.
That's fair.
All right, let's finish
I had that in the holster because I knew you were bringing that junk up at some point. I was shocked it took you this long with how much I've talked about Royce Freeman lately.
Yeah, and
for some reason, I don't remember you really giving me as much crap as South.
I was out on Royce.
But I say that knowing full well that I really hold on to the things that South says to me a lot longer than the rest of the
so listen, just for a peek behind the curtain, this is apparently the group now where everything that you ever say gets screenshotted and then brought up every day for the rest of your life.
As it should.
So,
yep.
All right, give me a fantasy dud from the AFC West for 2018.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up my night here first. This is another Miles favorite. Not quite Keenan Allen level. Let's not get crazy, but I'm not going to touch Demaryius Thomas this year. And that hurts to say I love me some DT, but I'm out. I think Denver is going to improve a ton on offense, but I actually don't think possibly their best player as far as career goes is going to be a major beneficiary. I love the run game to carry the team, and the Broncos beat guys I follow are saying Emmanuel Sanders very, very clearly is Case Keenum's favorite target. So when they're just in their normal two receiver sets, I expect Emmanuel to be the number one guy. And on top of that, if you're Denver, you absolutely owe it to yourself to get Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton very involved. Get them plenty of run because you owe Demaryius and Emmanuel big money next year if they're not going to be free agents already. You need to know if these two can be your receivers of the future. So I think that might be at the expense of DT. I don't think he's going to fall off the map completely. He's still a good player. But last year, people were disappointed with an 83 catch, 949-yard, 5-touchdown line. And I don't think he's going to deliver on that. So as receiver 18, you're going to be really disappointed with 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's going to crush you.
Side note, do you think that we could be talking about DT next year in a new place on like a resurgence, or do you think we're at the decline already?
I think we're approaching the decline. I think he still can be a productive guy. I think his days of being a top 10 receiver are long gone, but he's certainly not going to be that Dez Bryant off a cliff guy. But I think if he goes to the right situation, yeah, he's still a good player. He just might be in that phase of his career where he's better for his NFL team than he is for your fantasy team.
Yep. All right, I'll jump in next. This could potentially cause an argument, but my guy is Tyreek Hill, and we all know how I feel about him. I don't think he's a high volume guy. Obviously, we know that he's explosive. We know he can do that. But the rumors coming out right now is that with as big as that arm is, Mahomes has not been that accurate and that consistent. He's throwing picks in practice. This could be, a little bit of a smokescreen just to, make sure teams are honest. Listen, they have a lot of weapons, but that's also a lot of mouths to feed. So I don't know if I can get on board with a Tyreek Hill as we have him as in our Goon rankings as wide receiver 12. That essentially makes him a wide receiver 1. I don't know if I can. I think you're going to have too many weeks where you see Tyreek Hill with a 1 for 30 stat line, and I don't know if I can get behind that.
I think it's not going to start an argument because I don't know if I can try to convince you how good Tyreek Hill is anymore.
Yeah. I think you have the right team, right position, wrong receiver.
Agree.
It's Sammy Watkins. Look, right now he's going wide receiver 30, number 72 overall. He's clearly the third guy at best in that offense as an option after Tyreek, after Travis Kelce, and maybe even after Kareem Hunt, if we're being honest. So, I get that, it looks like they paid him a lot of money to come in, whatever, but this is his third offense that he's got to learn now in the last 3 years. He's not been super productive in some pretty decent looking offenses the last year or two. So I think that wide receiver 30 for a guy who's going to catch 60 passes and maybe give you 775 yards and 3 or 4 scores. There's nothing appealing about that to me.
Yeah, I also picked him, and I'll actually be shocked if he has more targets than Kareem Hunt. I just can't see it happening. And he's going ahead of Corey Davis, and I haven't been high on Corey Davis, but at least you're getting a guy that's a wide receiver 1 and is going to get targets, or at least by every account should. I just can't see Sammy Watkins. Number 1, I can't see him staying healthy, but I just can't draft him where he's being drafted.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the show and our 2018 AFC preview. Next week, we'll hit you with the relief.
We made it.
Yes. Next week, we'll hit you with the NFC preview. Same basic format with a lot of fantasy input. We feel like this is going to be more productive than giving you a breakdown of who's slotted in at left tackle for the Ravens this year. So make sure you're keeping up with us. Facebook.com/footballgoons, @footballgoons on the Twitter. YouTube channel, our Football Goons YouTube channel for those of you who are watching right now. Those are the best ways to keep up with us on social media. We're interactive on social media. We answer your questions. We get involved in your conversation. So feel free to reach out to us there. Footballgoons.com is the best place, is kind of the hub to interact with us as well. You can get us on the message boards there. You can check out our updated fantasy football rankings. If you've got a draft coming up the next week, the next 2 weeks or so, you could sort our rankings out. You could take our rankings with you, take our consensus, study those. We're updating those consistently at this point. So I know there's some sites out there where they haven't been updated in 2-3 weeks at this point. We're committed to updating those rankings for you consistently throughout draft season. So footballgoons.com is the place for that. We'll catch you guys next week.